What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
China increased its tariffs on U.S. imports to 125% on Friday, hitting back against President Donald Trump's decision to raise duties on goods from the world's second largest economy.
I do have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office. The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them.
In the span of just 1 week, America's auto industry, long regarded as the beating heart of U.S. industrial might, has begun to unravel. Factories are halting exports. Foreign markets are slamming their doors shut. Dealerships are bracing for inventory chaos. And legacy brands, companies that helped build modern America, are questioning whether they can survive in the very country they helped create. This unraveling wasn't caused by war, recession, or lack of demand. It was caused by tariffs. And the fallout is happening right now, in real time. Before we dive deeper, hit that like button to help us beat the algorithm and bring more attention to stories that matter. Let's begin with Ford. Just hours ago, the Ford Motor Company confirmed it has suspended all shipments of U.S.-made vehicles to China. That includes iconic models like the F-150 Raptor, the Mustang, and several top-selling SUVs. Why? Because China has retaliated against the latest round of U.S. tariffs with harsh measures of its own, raising import duties on American-made vehicles up to 150%. That means a $40,000 Ford vehicle now costs over $100,000 in China. No consumer is going to pay that. So, Ford has pulled the plug. Shipments of finished vehicles have been halted. Only engines and parts destined for Ford's Chinese manufacturing partners are still moving, for now. But the message from Beijing is crystal clear. You are no longer welcome here. And it's not just Ford that's feeling the heat. Let's talk about Buick. The brand was finally staging a comeback after years of stagnation. Its small SUV lineup was catching fire, with first quarter sales up nearly 40%. But there's a catch. None of those vehicles are built in the United States. The Encore GX and Envista are made in South Korea, while the Envision is assembled in China. Now, all three are being crushed under the weight of new U.S. tariffs. South Korean-made vehicles are being hit with a 27.12% tariff. The Chinese-built Envision, nearly 50% in duties and fees. That's not just a price bump, that's a potential death sentence. Sticker prices are about to soar. Dealers are bracing for severe inventory issues, and customers, many of whom Buick only recently won back, could be priced out entirely. As one auto analyst put it bluntly, if these tariffs hold, Buick's momentum is finished. The brand may not survive. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel, because the mainstream media isn't covering this collapse. Now, let's look across the Pacific to Japan, a nation whose economy depends heavily on exporting vehicles to the United States. Automakers like Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Subaru ship millions of cars to American buyers every year. But now, those shipments are being taxed at the border, facing a steep 25% tariff under the new U.S. trade framework. The response has been swift and tense. Some Japanese manufacturers have already begun to scale back U.S.-bound shipments. Others are quietly raising prices. Behind closed doors, Tokyo is scrambling to strike a deal. According to reports released this morning, Japan has offered a dramatic trade concession. It's willing to boost imports of U.S. agricultural products, including soybeans and rice, in exchange for tariff relief on cars. In other words, Japan is offering food to save cars. Negotiations are underway. President Donald Trump reportedly met with Japan's top trade negotiator in the Oval Office earlier this week. Officials say progress was made, but nothing has been signed. And until the tariffs are lifted, Japan's most vital industry hangs in the balance. The message from Tokyo couldn't be clearer. Give us a deal, or brace for economic consequences. America's auto industry stands at the edge of a cliff. What was billed as protectionism is spiraling into a full-blown trade war. And it's not just steel and cars on the line, it's jobs, livelihoods, and the economic stability of millions. This isn't theory. It's not a prediction. It's happening. Now. All of this, the Ford freeze, the Buick crisis, the Japan panic, traces back to one thing: economic nationalism. This isn't a bug in the system. This is the system. A strategy where tariffs aren't just a negotiating tactic, they're the entire plan. But now, that plan is unraveling, and fast. Because the more America tries to isolate itself, the more the world hits back. The retaliation has begun, and it's hitting the U.S. auto industry where it hurts. China's response was swift and devastating. Tariffs on American-made vehicles have effectively wiped out one of the largest overseas markets for U.S. automakers. Sales have collapsed. Export channels are drying up. And even domestic assembly lines, long considered safe, are now starting to feel the squeeze. It gets worse. Internal documents from Ford show that if these tariffs remain in place into the next quarter, price hikes on select models will be unavoidable. That means higher sticker prices for consumers, reduced incentives, tighter financing, and ultimately, fewer vehicles sold. A squeeze at every level, from factory floor to showroom. And here's the quiet part. Nobody wants to say out loud, this isn't just about foreign-made cars. Even vehicles built in America rely heavily on imported parts: engines, sensors, wiring, electronics, components sourced from Mexico, Japan, and China. And guess what? Those parts are now under tariff too. So even if your car rolls off a U.S. assembly line, the costs embedded in its parts have been hit, and that cost has to land somewhere. Spoiler, it lands on you. In corporate boardrooms, executives are alarmed. At dealerships, sales teams are getting nervous. And on factory floors, union workers are asking hard questions. Will shifts be cut? Will jobs be lost? The fear is real, and it's growing. Because this isn't just about trade strategy, it's about survival. And the bitter irony? The very policy sold as a way to bring jobs home might be the one that sends them away, for good. Suppliers are already sounding the alarm. Orders are slowing. Steel and aluminum prices are unstable. Transportation costs are surging, and America's international partners aren't waiting quietly. They're drawing up retaliation plans of their own. In Brussels, the EU is preparing a fresh round of counter tariffs. In Seoul, South Korean automakers are rethinking their investments in U.S. factories. In Beijing, the message is clear. You escalate, so will we. This is how trade wars become global. And this is how entire industries collapse, from the inside out. The real danger isn't just political, it's temporal. Because if these tariffs remain in place for another quarter, or worse, become permanent, the restructuring will begin. Foreign car makers will start pulling out, suppliers will shut down, assembly lines will consolidate, and jobs, high-paying, skilled, blue-collar jobs, will disappear. Quietly, permanently. And for the average American, this means higher prices, fewer choices, and a car market in turmoil. Don't think the electric vehicle boom will cushion the blow either. EVs rely even more on imported parts, especially for batteries. And if China tightens its grip on exports of lithium, cobalt, or rare earth minerals, it's game over. The EV revolution could stall before it ever truly starts. This isn't some distant risk. This is now. This is what happens when global supply chains are weaponized, and it's already begun. So what happens next? That depends entirely on Washington. Will U.S. negotiators strike a deal with Japan? Will tariffs on South Korean and Chinese vehicles be lifted? Will there be a broader trade alliance with Europe to stabilize the market? Or will America double down and let its auto industry bear the brunt? Because one thing is certain, the shockwaves have already begun. If nothing changes, the damage will spread to dealerships, to logistics networks, to suppliers, to every single American trying to buy a car this year. The cost of protectionism is no longer theoretical. It's here. It's mounting. And the question now isn't whether tariffs will shake the system, it's whether they'll break it.